The first warning came not as a sound, but as a quantum ripple, a disturbance in the carefully calibrated neural networks that connected the colonists of Sigma-9. Dr. Aria Chen, lead researcher of the Adaptive Potential Project, felt it before anyone else. Her augmented senses, a complex web of biological and technological interfaces that blurred the line between human consciousness and advanced computing, detected the incoming threat milliseconds before the colony's primary defense systems. "Incoming," she whispered, though her communication was instantaneous. A burst of pure information transmitted through the colony's distributed neural network. Around her, the research complex of Sigma-9 was no ordinary human settlement. Carved into the rocky terrain of a seemingly unremarkable planet, it was a living laboratory of human potential, a crucible where the boundaries of human capability were being systematically dismantled and reconstructed. The colonists were not soldiers in any traditional sense. They were volunteers, scientists, engineers, medical researchers, and test subjects of the most radical human augmentation program ever conceived. Each of them had undergone experimental procedures that transformed their bodies and minds into something beyond conventional human limitation. Neural implants that allowed instantaneous information processing, adaptive biological systems that could rapidly respond to environmental changes, genetic modifications that enhanced physical and cognitive capabilities. Sigma-9 was humanity's most ambitious experiment. The Zarnkar attack was sudden, brutal, and calculated. Massive energy signatures erupted across the colony's outer defensive perimeter. Quantum-encrypted communication channels lit up with threat analysis and tactical assessments. But this was not a panicked response. It was a coordinated, almost mechanical reaction of augmented humans who had trained for this exact scenario. Tactical assessment. Dr. Chen's neural interface transmitted to the colony's distributed command network. Her consciousness expanded, interfacing with the colony's advanced predictive systems. The incoming Zarnkar fleet was massive. 47 capital ships, supported by hundreds of smaller attack craft. Their approach vector suggested total planetary conquest, not merely a raid. In the research complex's central chamber, a group of colonists began to transform. Their bodies were not just human anymore. They were living weapons, biological systems that could adapt in real time to incoming threats. Dermal layers shifted, becoming harder than titanium alloys. Muscular structures reconfigured, gaining impossible strength and flexibility. Neural pathways expanded, creating distributed intelligence networks that could process combat scenarios faster than any traditional computer. Marcus Rodriguez, younger brother to Captain Elena Rodriguez, and one of the primary test subjects of the Adaptive Potential Project, was the first to fully activate. His transformation was both terrifying and beautiful. Nano-augmentative systems woven through his biological structure began to reconfigure, creating adaptive armor that could absorb and redirect energy weapons. His eyes, now embedded with quantum processing interfaces, could perceive multiple electromagnetic spectrums simultaneously. Incoming energy weapon signatures, Marcus transmitted through the neural network. Zarnkar pulse cannons. Preliminary analysis suggests they're targeting our primary research complexes. The first wave of Zarnkar attack craft broke through the planet's upper atmosphere. They were technological marvels, sleek, predatory vessels designed for total planetary suppression. The aliens had conquered dozens of emerging civilizations, their military doctrine built on overwhelming force and psychological domination. They did not know what awaited them. Dr. Chen's final preparation was both a scientific procedure and a combat initialization. She activated the colony's ultimate defensive mechanism, a distributed neural network that would transform every colonist into a unified adaptive combat organism. It was more than a defense system. It was a statement, a demonstration of what humanity could become when pushed to its absolute limits. Activation sequence initiated, she transmitted. All units prepare for total engagement. The Zarnkar believed they were attacking a colony. They would soon learn they had stumbled into something far more dangerous, a living experiment in human potential, a crucible that would redefine what it meant to be human in the vast, unforgiving landscape of galactic conflict. Sigma-9 was ready, and the Zarnkar had no idea what was about to hit them. The Interstellar Defense Force's Quantum Command Center erupted with a controlled chaos that was anything but random. Captain Elena Rodriguez stood at the epicenter, her neural interface crackling with real-time data streams that most human minds would find incomprehensible. This was her domain, the battlefield of information, strategy, and split-second decision-making that transcended traditional military doctrine. Sigma-9 is not just another colony. She spoke, her words simultaneously transmitted through quantum communication channels, tactical networks, and direct neural interfaces to every ship in the response fleet. This is our line in the sand. The holographic displays around her were a living, breathing ecosystem of tactical information. Each data point was not just a number or a coordinate, but a living piece of a complex strategic puzzle. The Zarnkar attack on Sigma-9 was more than an assault. It was a calculated probe, designed to test humanity's defensive capabilities and psychological resilience. Elena's first move was unconventional. Instead of mounting a direct counterattack, she initiated a series of quantum-encrypted communication hijacks that would simultaneously disorient and misdirect the Zarnkar fleet. Advanced AI systems, integrated directly into her neural network, began spinning complex probabilistic models, not just predicting the enemy's movements, but actively manipulating their decision-making processes. Target their communication relays, she transmitted to the first wave of response ships. But don't destroy them. Compromise them. The human response fleet was unlike anything in galactic military history. Each vessel was more than a weapon. It was an adaptive, quasi-living system. Nano-regenerative hull structures could repair damage in milliseconds. Quantum-entangled weapon systems could predict and counter incoming attacks before they were even initiated. The ships were extensions of their crew's augmented consciousness, biological and technological systems working in perfect, terrifying harmony. 3 Zarnkar battleships were the first to feel the true nature of human warfare. Their advanced communication networks suddenly became conduits of strategic chaos. Encrypted data streams began to flood their systems, not to destroy, but to confuse. False tactical information, quantum-generated hallucinations of non-existent human fleet movements, cascading logic loops that would make their AI defense systems seize up in computational paralysis. Marcus Rodriguez's neural link from Sigma-9 provided real-time tactical insights directly to Elena's command interface. The colony wasn't just defending. It was actively studying the Zarnkar's attack patterns, generating predictive models that would make their military strategists look like primitive chess players. Incoming energy buildup, Marcus transmitted. Their primary weapon systems are charging. Probability of full-scale planetary bombardment, 87.3%. Elena's response was instantaneous. Redirect quantum communication pulse. Pattern Delta 9. The human counterattack was surgical. Not a single missile was fired. Instead, the Zarnkar found their most advanced weapon systems turning against them. Energy buildups became internal cascading failures. Weapon targeting systems began to hallucinate threats that didn't exist. It was psychological warfare taken to its ultimate technological extreme. Dr. Aria Chen's research from Sigma-9 played a crucial role. The neural network they had developed wasn't just a defensive system. It was an adaptive intelligence that could learn and counter alien technological paradigms in real time. Each moment of the conflict became a data point, a learning experience that would reshape humanity's understanding of warfare. 3 Zarnkar battleships simply went dark. Not destroyed. Worse, they became inert, their advanced systems rendered completely non-functional by a form of technological warfare the aliens couldn't comprehend. It wasn't about killing. It was about rendering the enemy completely irrelevant. First phase complete. Elena transmitted. Her voice carried a weight that went beyond military communication. It was a statement, a warning to the Zarnkar and the entire Sovereign Council. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they were playing by entirely different rules. The quantum communication channels buzzed with a message that would soon be decoded by every civilization in the Sovereign Council. This was not just a defense. This was a declaration of human potential. The first battle was over. The real war was just beginning. Dr. Yamamoto Kiko's laboratory was not a place of traditional scientific research. It was a crucible of impossibility. Located in the most secure section of humanity's advanced research complex, her team represented the absolute bleeding edge of human technological innovation. Here, the laws of physics were not limitations but mere suggestions. Quantum coherence stabilization at 99.998%, she muttered, her augmented neural interfaces dancing across holographic displays that seemed to breathe and pulse with living information. The Zarnkar attack had provided them with something more valuable than any intelligence report. It had given humanity a direct technological challenge. The captured Zarnkar weapon systems were now spread across multiple containment chambers, each a marvel of alien engineering that would have taken most civilizations decades to begin understanding. For Dr. Keiko and her team, it was a playground of possibilities that would be comprehensively dismantled and reimagined within hours. Begin adaptive resonance mapping, she transmitted to the research team. Dozens of augmented scientists, each with neural interfaces that allowed them to process information at speeds that would make traditional supercomputers look like abacuses, began their work. The first breakthrough came unexpectedly. A junior researcher named Dr. Marcos Santos discovered that the Zarnkar's quantum communication systems operated on a fundamentally different principle than previously understood. Where most civilizations saw communication as a linear process, the Zarnkar had developed a multidimensional information transfer system that could simultaneously exist in multiple states. Humanity's response was immediate and devastating. Within 12 hours, Dr. Keiko's team had not only decoded the alien communication system, but had developed a method to not just intercept, but to completely rewrite and redirect their quantum communication networks. It wasn't just about understanding alien technology. It was about fundamentally transforming it. Quantum entanglement breakthrough, Santos announced, his neural interface projecting a holographic model that looked like a living, breathing cosmic symphony. We can now generate quantum communication nodes that can simultaneously exist in multiple quantum states, effectively creating communication channels that are impossible to trace or intercept. The implications were staggering. Traditional concepts of communication, encryption, and information transfer were about to be completely obsolete. In another section of the research complex, Dr. Elena Rodriguez, no relation to the military captain, but equally brilliant, was working on something even more revolutionary. The captured Zarnkar energy weapon systems were being systematically transformed. Where the aliens had developed weapons of pure destruction, humanity was reimagining them as adaptive energy transfer and transformation systems. "Look at this," she called out to her team, projecting a holographic model of a weapon that was part technology, part living system. "We're not just copying their technology. We're evolving it." The weapon she demonstrated could do more than destroy. It could analyze, adapt, and redirect energy in ways that defied conventional physics. A weapon that could turn an enemy's own energy against them, that could learn and modify its own functionality in real time. That was more of a living intelligence than a simple tool of war. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched these developments from her tactical command center. The reports streaming in were not just promising. They were revolutionary. Humanity wasn't just defending itself. It was demonstrating a level of technological innovation that would fundamentally reshape galactic understanding of scientific potential. Sovereign Council Communication Intercept, her neural interface, suddenly announced. The holographic display showed a gathering of alien representatives, their discussions filled with a mixture of terror and disbelief. "They've decoded our communication systems in less than a standard cycle," one representative was saying. "That's impossible." Another responded, voice trembling. "Apparently, not for humans." The technological revelations were more than just a military advantage. They were a statement, a declaration that humanity's true strength lay not in its ability to destroy, but in its capacity to understand, adapt, and transform. Dr. Keiko looked up from her work, a slight smile crossing her augmented features. They were rewriting the rules of technological evolution, and they were just getting started. The Zarnkar had attacked a colony. They had awakened something far more dangerous, humanity's infinite potential for innovation. The Sovereign Council's Grand Chamber was a marvel of galactic architecture, a massive spherical space where holographic representations of dozens of alien civilizations could gather simultaneously. Normally a place of measured diplomacy and calculated political maneuvering, it now pulsed with an electric tension that bordered on panic. Ambassador Zornak of the Crystalline Confederation was the first to break the mounting silence. His translucent form flickered with agitation, prismatic edges sharp with barely contained fury. The humans have not just repelled the Zarnkar attack, he declared, his voice a resonant vibration that translated across multiple linguistic spectrums. They have systematically dismantled an entire advanced civilization's military infrastructure in a matter of standard cycles. The holographic representation of the Quantum Directorate's lead diplomat, a being composed of what appeared to be living mathematical equations, responded with clinical precision. Probability models suggested a 0.3% chance of such a comprehensive technological and strategic response. Our predictive algorithms are inadequate. At the center of the chamber, a massive holographic display showed real-time data streams from the conflict. Each visualization told a story of human innovation that defied every established galactic understanding of technological development. Weapon systems that rewrote themselves mid-conflict, communication networks that could predict and manipulate enemy strategies before they were even conceived, defensive technologies that didn't just protect, but actively transformed incoming threats. Ambassador Lerath from the Biological Convergence leaned forward, her multiple sensory tendrils trembling. The genetic and neural augmentation technologies we've intercepted, they're not just modifications, they're a complete reimagining of biological potential. These humans are transforming themselves at a cellular level in real time. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of translated conversations. Fear, anger, disbelief. But underneath it all, a growing recognition of something far more terrifying. A fundamental challenge to the existing galactic order. A quantum-encrypted communication suddenly flooded the chamber's communication systems. It wasn't an attack. It was a message, carefully crafted, precisely delivered, that seemed to bypass all standard communication protocols. Captain Elena Rodriguez's voice filled the space, not shouting, not threatening, simply stating facts with a clinical precision that was more terrifying than any military ultimatum. The Zarnkar attacked a human colony, she began. They believed they were targeting a minor civilization. Instead, they discovered a crucible of human potential. We are not asking for your permission or approval. We are informing you of a new galactic reality. The holographic displays began to shift. Classified communication networks of multiple civilizations, networks that were supposed to be unhackable, began to display their most guarded secrets. Economic infrastructures, military preparedness reports, diplomatic back-channel negotiations. Nothing was sacred. Nothing was secure. Ambassador Zornak's crystalline form began to fracture, a physical manifestation of psychological stress that was rare among his species. "This is impossible," he muttered, though everyone heard him clearly. No civilization can achieve this level of comprehensive intelligence infiltration. But they had. The Sovereign Council's most guarded secret was now laid bare. For centuries, they had maintained a delicate balance of power through carefully managed information control. Technological embargoes, strategic limitations placed on emerging civilizations, a system designed to prevent any single species from becoming too powerful too quickly. Humanity had just demolished that entire system in a matter of hours. The holographic displays continued to cascade with information, Not just military or technological data, but the kind of deeply personal, culturally sensitive information that could destabilize entire civilizations. It wasn't about destruction. It was about exposure. About challenging the very foundations of how galactic civilization had operated for millennia. "We are not your enemies," Alina's message continued. "We are offering a new paradigm of cooperation. But make no mistake, we will defend our interests with every tool at our disposal." As the message concluded, the Sovereign Council representatives sat in stunned silence. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had just announced its arrival on the galactic stage in the most comprehensive way possible. Not with weapons, not with threats. With pure, unfiltered potential. Dr. Marcus Rodriguez stood at the epicenter of humanity's most advanced psychological warfare research facility, a place where the boundaries between technology, consciousness, and strategic manipulation blurred into something entirely new. The walls were alive with quantum-entangled information streams, holographic representations of complex mimetic structures that could reshape entire civilizational belief systems. Mimetic cascade initiated. He transmitted through a neural interface that was part communication system, part living intelligence. The target was not just the Zarnkar. It was the entire psychological infrastructure of the Sovereign Council. Humanity had long understood something that other galactic civilizations had missed. Warfare was no longer about territory, resources, or even technological superiority. It was about narrative, about perception, about the fundamental ways intelligent species understood themselves and their place in the universe. The first wave of psychological operations was subtle. Quantum-encrypted communication channels began to flood alien information networks with carefully constructed narratives. These weren't simple propaganda pieces. They were intricate, multi-layered information ecosystems that could adapt in real time to how different species processed information. For the Crystalline Confederation, the narratives played on their species' deep-seated fear of entropy, showing how the Zarnkar's militaristic expansion was actually a slow process of cultural and technological decay. Holographic simulations demonstrated potential futures where the Zarnkar's aggressive expansion would ultimately lead to their own extinction. The biological convergence received a different approach. Highly sophisticated genetic and neurological analysis began to circulate, demonstrating how the Zarnkar's military structure was fundamentally incompatible with long-term species survival. Each information packet was a precision-guided psychological weapon, tailored to the specific cognitive vulnerabilities of that civilization. Psychological penetration at 67.3%, an AI assistant transmitted to Marcus. But these were more than just numbers. Each percentage point represented a fundamental shift in collective consciousness. Captain Alina Rodriguez oversaw the operation from her quantum command center. This was more than military strategy. It was a comprehensive redesign of galactic social dynamics. The goal wasn't to destroy the Zarnkar or subjugate the Sovereign Council. It was to expose the fundamental flaws in their existing power structures. Classified communication networks began to leak, not randomly, but with surgical precision. Each leaked document was a carefully selected piece of a larger puzzle, revealing how the Sovereign Council had manipulated emerging civilizations for millennia. Economic embargoes, technological limitations, strategic isolations designed to prevent any species from challenging their established order. The Zarnkar found themselves facing something far more terrifying than a military defeat. Their entire cultural narrative was being systematically dismantled. Quantum adaptive communication systems began to infiltrate their internal communication networks, not to destroy, but to introduce calculated cognitive dissonance. Military units began to receive conflicting orders. Strategic planning systems started to generate scenarios that highlighted the fundamental moral and ethical contradictions in their expansionist approach. It was psychological warfare taken to its ultimate technological extreme. A form of conflict that didn't just defeat an enemy, but fundamentally transformed their understanding of themselves. Dr. Aria Chen's research from the Sigma-9 colony played a crucial role. The neural network they had developed wasn't just a defensive system. It was a living, adaptive intelligence that could analyze and manipulate complex social systems in real time. Each moment of the conflict became a data point, a learning experience that would reshape humanity's understanding of interspecies communication. "We're not destroying them," Marcus transmitted to Alina. "We're giving them an opportunity to evolve." The Sovereign Council's most guarded secret was now becoming clear. The existing galactic order was not a natural progression, but a carefully maintained illusion. Humanity was offering something radical, a chance to reimagine interspecies cooperation based on genuine understanding rather than manipulative control. As the psychological operations reached their peak, something extraordinary began to happen. The Zarnkar's military units weren't just becoming confused, they were beginning to question. Not just their current mission, but their entire historical narrative. Soldiers began to communicate in ways that defied their traditional hierarchical structures. It wasn't conquest. It was a form of cognitive liberation that no civilization had ever attempted before. Captain Rodriguez looked at the developing situation, a slight smile crossing her face. They were rewriting the rules of conflict, of communication, of civilizational interaction. And they were just getting started. The transformation began in a moment of absolute silence. Deep within the Sigma-9 research complex, the augmented colonists reached a critical evolutionary threshold that would forever change the understanding of human potential. Dr. Aria Chen watched as the first wave of subjects entered what could only be described as a collective quantum state of consciousness, a biological and technological singularity that defied every known principle of human limitation. Marcus Rodriguez was at the epicenter of this metamorphosis. His body was no longer simply biological. Nano-augmentative systems woven through his cellular structure began to reconfigure at a quantum level. Neural pathways expanded beyond traditional neurological constraints, creating a distributed intelligence that was simultaneously individual and collective. His consciousness became a living network, capable of processing information across multiple dimensional states. Quantum coherence stabilizing. He transmitted, not through traditional communication channels, but through a form of pure informational exchange that transcended language. Around him, the other augmented colonists began to undergo similar transformations. Their bodies were shifting, adapting, becoming something that existed between biological organism and living technology. The research team's neural interfaces captured what could only be described as an evolutionary leap. Cellular structures began to demonstrate capabilities that rewrote the fundamental understanding of human biology. Adaptive immune systems that could instantaneously analyze and neutralize any potential threat. Neurological networks that could process complex quantum information faster than the most advanced artificial intelligence. Metabolic systems that could draw energy from multiple sources, adapting to environments that would kill traditional biological organisms. Captain Alina Rodriguez received the first transmission from her brother. It wasn't a message in any traditional sense. It was a complex quantum information burst that contained more data than most civilizations could process in centuries. The transmission revealed the true nature of the Sigma-9 project. It was never just a colony. It was a controlled experiment in human potential, designed to push the boundaries of biological and technological evolution. We are not just adapting. Marcus's quantum transmission revealed. We are becoming. The Zarnkar had attacked what they believed was a simple human settlement. Instead, they had triggered the next stage of human evolution. The augmented colonists began to demonstrate capabilities that defied conventional understanding. They could communicate across vast distances through quantum entanglement. Their bodies could adapt to environmental conditions that would be fatal to most biological organisms. More importantly, they could process and analyze information at a level that made traditional computational systems look primitive. Dr. Chen's holographic displays began to show something extraordinary. The augmented humans weren't just changing themselves. They were beginning to interface with the surrounding technological infrastructure in ways that blurred the line between biological organism and living technology. Entire research complexes became extensions of their collective consciousness. Sovereign Council intercept. An AI assistant transmitted. The alien representatives were monitoring the developments with a mixture of terror and scientific fascination. Quantum communication channels were flooded with data that showed the true scope of human potential. The transformation wasn't just physical. It was a fundamental reimagining of what it meant to be an intelligent species. Marcus could now perceive multiple quantum states simultaneously. He could analyze complex systemic challenges across multiple dimensional perspectives. Where the Zarnkar saw military conflict, he could see intricate ecological and social systems waiting to be understood and optimized. We are offering a different path, his quantum transmission revealed to the Sovereign Council. Not conquest, not destruction, evolution. The augmented colonists began to demonstrate capabilities that went beyond traditional understanding of intelligence. They could simulate complex societal and ecological systems with a level of precision that made previous predictive models look like crude guesswork. They could interface with technological systems in ways that made traditional programming look like primitive cave drawings. Captain Elena Rodriguez watched the developments with a mix of scientific fascination and familial pride. This was more than a military response. This was a fundamental challenge to every existing concept of intelligence, of potential, of what it meant to be an advanced civilization. The Zarnkar had attacked a human colony. They had awakened something far more dangerous. They had triggered the next stage of human potential, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The total strategic dominance began not with a weapon, but with information. Dr. Keiko Yamamoto's quantum intelligence network spread across the galactic communication infrastructure like a living neural system. Each node was a complex adaptive intelligence that could simultaneously analyze, predict, and manipulate the intricate systems of multiple civilizations. The Zarnkar's military and economic infrastructure wasn't just being attacked, it was being systematically understood, dismantled, and reconstructed. Captain Elena Rodriguez oversaw the operation from a command center that was more a living organism than a traditional military installation. Her augmented consciousness interfaced directly with the quantum intelligence network, processing billions of strategic variables simultaneously. This wasn't conventional warfare. It was a comprehensive systems-level intervention. "Begin Phase 3, she transmitted. The first wave of strategic dismantling targeted the Zarnkar's economic infrastructure. Quantum communication channels began to expose every hidden financial network, every black market transaction, every corrupt diplomatic back channel. But this wasn't simple exposure. It was a carefully orchestrated deconstruction that would allow the Zarnkar's subject civilizations to see their true nature of oppression. Entire economic systems began to unravel, not through destruction, but through precise, quantum-level understanding. The human strategic approach revealed the fundamental flaws in the Zarnkar's expansionist model. Trade routes that had been maintained through military intimidation suddenly became transparent. Economic dependencies that had kept subject civilizations in perpetual subservience were methodically exposed and dismantled. Marcus Rodriguez's augmented consciousness played a crucial role. His ability to simultaneously analyze multiple systemic perspectives allowed the human strategic team to understand the Zarnkar's infrastructure at a level that went beyond traditional intelligence gathering. Each economic network, each military supply chain, each diplomatic relationship became a living, transparent system. "It's not about destroying," Marcus transmitted to the strategic team. "It's about creating the conditions for genuine self-determination." The Sovereign Council watched in horror as their carefully maintained galactic order began to disintegrate. Quantum-encrypted communication channels revealed decades of manipulative practices, technological embargoes designed to keep emerging civilizations perpetually dependent, diplomatic machinations that had prevented any single species from challenging the existing power structure. Humanity wasn't just attacking the Zarnkar. They were exposing the entire systemic approach that had maintained galactic power dynamics for millennia. Dr. Aria Chen's research from the Sigma-9 colony provided the strategic framework. The neural network they had developed could analyze civilizational systems with a complexity that made previous predictive models look like primitive guesswork. Each intervention was precisely calculated to create maximum systemic transformation with minimal direct conflict. Military installations began to experience cascading system failures, not through direct attack, but through quantum-level information manipulation that exposed fundamental vulnerabilities. Communication networks became conduits of strategic transparency. Every classified document, every hidden negotiation became a potential point of systemic transformation. The augmented human strategists demonstrated a level of comprehensive understanding that went beyond traditional military thinking. They could simultaneously analyze ecological, economic, social, and technological systems, understanding how each interconnected in ways that no previous civilization had comprehended. We are offering a different paradigm of galactic interaction. Alina's strategic transmission revealed. Not conquest, not subjugation, genuine systemic optimization. Subject civilizations under Zarnkar control began to receive carefully constructed information packages. These weren't propaganda. They were comprehensive systemic analyses that revealed the true nature of their oppression. Economic models showed how they could achieve genuine prosperity. Technological embargoes were systematically dismantled. The Zarnkar found themselves facing something far more terrifying than a military defeat. Their entire systemic infrastructure was being comprehensively reimagined. Marcus Rodriguez's quantum consciousness captured the essence of their approach. We are not destroying, his transmission revealed. We are creating the conditions for genuine evolutionary potential. As the strategic dismantling reached its peak, something extraordinary happened. The Zarnkar's subject civilizations began to see possibilities they had never imagined. Economic systems that had been locked in perpetual dependency suddenly saw paths to genuine self-determination. The Sovereign Council's most guarded secret was now fully exposed. The existing galactic order was not a natural progression, but a carefully maintained illusion of control. Humanity had just demonstrated a level of strategic intervention that went beyond any previous concept of conflict. And they were just getting started. The Galactic Reconstruction Summit was unlike any diplomatic gathering in recorded history. Representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered in a quantum-adaptive conference space that could simultaneously translate and interpret communication across biological, technological, and cognitive spectrums. Captain Alina Rodriguez stood at the center, not as a conqueror, but as an architect of possibility. Her augmented consciousness interfaced with the summit's communication infrastructure, creating a living, breathing dialogue that transcended traditional diplomatic restrictions. Marcus Rodriguez and Dr. Aria Chen stood beside her, physical manifestations of humanity's evolutionary potential, part biological, part technological, entirely something new. We are not here to replace your systems, Alina began, her transmission simultaneously translated across multiple communication spectrums. We are here to demonstrate a fundamental truth about collective potential. The holographic representations of the Sovereign Council members flickered, a mixture of terror, fascination, and reluctant respect. The crystalline Confederation's ambassador, whose prismatic form had once radiated imperial arrogance, now seemed almost translucent with uncertainty. Dr. Keiko Yamamoto's quantum intelligence network began to project a comprehensive systemic analysis that laid bare the fundamental flaws in the existing galactic governance model. It wasn't an accusation. It was a clinical, mathematically precise demonstration of how current systems perpetuated conflict, limited technological development, and restricted collective potential. The summit wasn't just a diplomatic meeting. It was a comprehensive reimagining of interspecies cooperation. Humanity presented a radical alternative. Instead of a hierarchical model of galactic governance, they proposed a dynamic, adaptive network of collaborative potential. Technologies would be shared. Scientific discoveries would be collectively developed. Economic systems would be designed to optimize collective growth rather than perpetuate artificial scarcity. Evolutionary potential is not a zero-sum game, Marcus transmitted, his quantum consciousness demonstrating complex systemic models that showed how collaborative development could exponentially increase collective capabilities. Where previous civilizations saw competition, humans saw interconnected potential. The augmented human representatives began to demonstrate technologies that seemed to defy conventional understanding. Quantum communication systems that could facilitate instantaneous, multidimensional information exchange. Adaptive ecological restoration technologies that could heal planetary ecosystems. Medical technologies that could fundamentally transform approaches to biological adaptation and healing. But these weren't offerings of superiority. They were invitations to collective evolution. Dr. Arya Chen's research from the Sigma-9 colony provided the philosophical framework. The neural network they had developed wasn't just a technological achievement. It was a living demonstration of how collective intelligence could transcend individual limitations. Each civilization could contribute its unique perspective to a larger, more comprehensive understanding. The Zarnkar representatives, now stripped of their previous imperial power, watched in stunned silence. Their entire paradigm of expansion and conquest had been systematically dismantled, replaced by a vision of collaborative potential they could barely comprehend. "We are not asking for your submission," Alina's transmission continued. "We are offering a partnership of genuine exploration and collective growth." Holographic displays began to show potential collaborative models, technological exchanges that could accelerate scientific understanding, economic systems that could optimize resource distribution, educational networks that could facilitate multi-species cognitive development. The summit was a living demonstration of humanity's true strength, not military might, but the ability to imagine and create fundamentally new possibilities. Individual representatives began to respond. The biological convergence saw opportunities for unprecedented medical collaboration. The Quantum Directorate recognized potential breakthroughs in communication technologies. Subject civilizations that had been oppressed by the Zarnkar saw pathways to genuine self-determination. Marcus Rodriguez's quantum consciousness captured the essence of their approach. Potential is not something to be controlled, his transmission revealed. It is something to be cultivated. As the summit progressed, something extraordinary began to happen. The rigid boundaries between civilizations began to soften. Communication channels became living, adaptive networks of shared understanding. The very concept of interspecies interaction was being reimagined in real time. Captain Rodriguez looked out at the gathering, a living demonstration of what was possible when collective potential was truly understood. They had not conquered the galaxy. They had invited it to evolve.